As many of you know from my review of Aladdin, it's one of my favorite classic Disney movies alongside The Lion King because when I was younger I watched both of them constantly. They have great plots, great villains, awesome music, and stories that I quite like. So here's a little theory I've come up with regarding Aladdin. It's something cool I noticed that might have ties to some really big things, so why wouldn't I want to share it with you guys? Let's go. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and here's my theory. It's been on the back burner for weeks now, so here we go. The Sultan of Agrabah, or rather Sultan Hamid Babylonius II of Agrabah, what's his deal? The pudgy dumpling is carefree and joyous and quite actually bad at being Sultan. If you take one solid look at the streets of Agrabah, you'll immediately notice that things aren't right. The justice system is corrupted, poverty and banditry has dominated, and this idiot ruler somehow thought Jafar was a good advisor. Unless Jafar hypnotized his way up the ranks, or Jafar was hired by someone else, this Sultan clearly isn't too thrilled with being ruler. While his city self-decimates, he sits on his throne playing with toys, marveling at the slightest bit of excitement, which just so happens to be a parade. He's the opposite of a ruler. He's a jolly person who's very easily manipulated. He's not quite fit to be a ruler. He's kind and benevolent, but he's just too distracted and carefree to be a decent ruler at all. In my personal opinion, Hamid Babylonius II was unwillingly handed Agrabah by his father, Hamid I. Now, I don't know much about the Aladdin TV show, but I did see something on a person named Hamid in an episode known as Lost and Founded, in which the main gang goes back in time and ultimately is somewhat the cause of Agrabah's creation. But they meet a man named Hamid who is revealed to be ancestrally related to Jasmine. Hamid II, Hamid I, they even look and act strikingly similar, so would they be father and son? Now, this would make sense except one. In the episode As the Netherworld Turns, we see a man named Babylonius who claims to be the grandfather of Hamid II. Two. In the movie, Hamid says that the ring has been his family for generations, implying more than one. And 3. It takes a long time to construct a place like Agrabah, albeit a broken one, so that point about this being his dad is kind of out the window now. But luckily it doesn't matter, because what my point is in all this is that Hamid II clearly loves his people and he loves being benevolent, but his lack of strictness has led to a broken city, showing how he doesn't exactly love being ruler. It was a birthright handed down to him from his father. Even when Jafar takes over, he immediately goes to bow before him until Jasmine takes charge. But something in all of this is extremely important. The ring. The one I just mentioned. It has been in the family for generations upon generations, and mixed with a ton of electricity and the mystical sands of time, Jafar uses it to track down the diamond in the rough, the one worthy of entering the Cave of Wonders. Now, my question is, why the diamond? Why would it help Jafar find the person worthy of entering? One might say that, well, it's symbolic. He uses a diamond to find the diamond in the rough. But while that has a chance of being the case, there is a much, much more epic, amazingly intriguing path we can take with this, which is why I'm proposing this theory to you today. So through a means of watching some very informative videos on Jafar, doing some research using other content with an Aladdin basis, and most importantly, bonus disc content, I discovered what may be going on here. So the television show Once Upon a Time in Wonderland is the spin-off of my favorite television show, Once Upon a Time. And while this show changes a lot of the backstories, the truth behind Jafar's motives remain the same. According to many deleted bits of Aladdin, Jafar was poor. This is also shown in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, but his tragic upbringing is the reason for his desperate grabbing of power. This is why he wanted the lamp. I'm sure he also clearly wanted to get on top of Agrabah's power, but his lifetime goal was the lamp. So why waste his time getting this close to the Sultan if He can just eventually get the lamp anyways. One could argue that it's his backup plan. Even in the movie, when he thinks he's lost the lamp forever, he immediately jumps to marrying Jasmine. But why bother initially? What is so special about the Sultan and his family? My theory revolves all around that pesky blue jewel. It has some sort of tie to those pure of heart. From viewing the movie and seeing the episodes where we meet Babylonia and Hamid, we know that every single person in this line of sultans is bumbling and fun-loving, very innocent and pure, precious gems. And basically what the Cave of Wonders constantly is asking for is someone pure of heart, who won't jump to stealing all of the boatloads of treasure, but only the lamp. And someone who wouldn't abuse the power of the lamp once they get it. It specifies that it should be someone who's also poor and is worthless on the outside but priceless on the inside. It is my solid theory that the Cave of Wonders was stocked and loaded with the treasure of the Sultans, the family which is far and away the most rich and simultaneously pure in all of Agrabah. And for Jafar to gain this knowledge, you bet he'd immediately flock towards the Sultan, the family with the tie to the lamp. And an oh-so-perfect ring for the extra symbolism. A ring that is very integral to the cave itself. I bet it's like a key to the cave. The wearer is allowed to collect the treasure they put down there, but only of course if they are a sultan. But of course, this many generations down, it's highly unlikely that the Sultan even knows anything about the Cave of Wonders, or that Genie knows anything about the current Sultan or what Agrabah's done recently. But take a look at something else. Aladdin is destined to be the next Sultan, and he's the one who is permitted to enter. Like, seriously, the diamond in the rough is a title, not a person. They're the only people outside of the sultans and the founders that are allowed to fiddle with the lamp, which is hidden in this underground treasure reservoir. The sultans surely will be let in, even though they're not the diamond in the rough, more like the diamond in the luxurious feather bed. They have permission. It is theirs. Jafar's usage of the ring and the way the Sultan explains it push for this being a very intriguing possible route. If you don't believe this yet, simply look at it from a logical standpoint. The only remotely rich people throughout this entire desert are the Sultans. There can be no one else. This is why the diamond let Jafar track Aladdin as needed. Now there's also an extremely high chance that one of the many sultans of the past actually did use the lamp. It only makes sense. Think about things logically for a second. How is a family of bumbling idiots expected to build and control a place like Agrabah? How would they suddenly be filled with billions, trillions of riches? Genie. It also explains why the second they returned them to their treasure vault, their kingdom began to crumble to the poverty-ridden point that it's at today, with a fractured legal system and total failure. Another point I'd like to bring up is how when Genie was released, he said his last master was a lot bigger than Aladdin. Now, he compares his height and whatnot, but then he immediately changes the topic and compares size with the concept of weight, and fat. Last master was a lot bigger than you. Like the infamous obese sultans of Agrabah, which, when you think about it, makes a hell of a lot more sense than some sort of weird, abnormally tall, mutated person. Although, before I move on to something else entirely, I want to briefly touch upon a flaw I found when creating this theory of mine. Genie says how he hasn't seen the carpet in a few millennia. Now, there are a lot of ways to explain this away, because of course, this wouldn't make sense if the Sultans were just a few centuries back. But let's run through the ways in which we can explain this away, because it can be done. One way is that Genie could have been released, but just not seen the carpet for a while. Another option is that Genie was exaggerating, as shown by how he lacks an exact number, and Genie exaggerates a lot. Or there's one other option, and that's that Agrabah truly has been established for a few millennia. Agrabah is directly based off of Baghdad. Disney just changed the name because of real-life politics at the time. Baghdad, or at least early versions of it, were founded during the 8th century. That is well over 1 millennia ago, and could still barely pass for what the Genie says. But either way, this thing he says voids certain plot points of the movie itself, not just my theory. Previously, I made a video about the genie's age where I basically point out how everything he says makes it impossible for him to have even been a human previously. Basically, he exaggerates a lot. And we do know that originally, Genie was a human. He sort of mentions it a couple of times, and the genie was supposed to be the merchant from the beginning of the movie. In an interview, the creators said that it was an idea that was always intended, but they didn't properly wrap it up in the end. And I mean, look at him. Very similar appearance and personality. My personal theory on this is that the genie was only blue for so long because he forgot his identity over the hundreds of years, but managed to turn back to the way he actually looks a few years after the third film takes place. We know it would be a few years because we see Aladdin and Jasmine fly by at the very end, acknowledging he's their friend. We even see the merchant do some little tricks and sleight of hand type thingies. And on the bonus disc, I noticed something cool. Timon appears in the merchant spot for some promotional reason, but he finds a letter from Genie to his aunt.
Dear Aunt Barbara. Aunt Barbara? Staying a few extra days on vacation, getting a dark blue tan, you're in charge of my friend Al. Dream of me, Genie.
I swear to God, this blew my mind when I found it like 15 years ago, but back to the main theory. I'm off on a tangent as usual. And so next, another key question is how on earth the Sultan's got a god or spirit or hell, a demon to guard the treasure. Is this thing a god? At first I thought it was Mufasa, but then I realized it was actually a tiger, not a lion. And as I was quite literally writing this very script, the YouTube channel Screen Junkies uploaded a video featuring the director of The Lion King, who blatantly confirmed my theory that it took place in the far past before humans, but also confirmed that it does not take place in the universe of any other films. Jeez, you better be careful, we're getting into canonical territory here. But as you can clearly see, I make my videos over a month in advance, like I'm writing this on August 30th. And so, for the Cave of Wonders, I don't know the answer. That's one I'm leaving to you guys because, it's just like an extra point on the theory. Doesn't void it, doesn't prove it, but it's an extra thing that's really cool. And because you are all extremely good at this kind of thing, building off of a theory that I've created. By the technical definition of Theorizer, it's someone who formulates and builds theories from the ground up, and theorists are people who build upon them and prove them and make them increasingly epic. But if there's one thing I'm certain about regarding this movie, it's that these sultans are very lax. There's no way they could do all of this without the power of something else. Jafar's the only truly powerful or smart one. I bet he was even the one who gave Iago the ability to speak. Jafar even tells Iago that if it weren't for him, Iago would still be squeaking Polly want a cracker at the local bazaar. I bet Jafar gave him serious intelligence, that's why he's a talking bird. Just one more reason to fear this outright amazing villain. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer, and next week, prepare for something downright terrifying, as it is October Friday the 13th. And I'm not doing Friday the 13th. I don't quite know what to do yet, though. Although for future reference, I do read every single thing that is sent to me on Twitter. It's the only social media platform I am constantly on, so follow me there if you'd like to request ideas because I read everything. But see you later.